video or the internet coverage is just not good. It comes in and out, so I can't really. It's really hard to do live feeds. As much as I like to be there and I can walk around, show all kinds of engine stuff, and that's kind of cool. Plus, I can show you the things like firsthand that I'm working on. But today, now we're just gonna have to talk about it a little bit while I get comfy. So tonight or today, I posted a video on piston valve clearance. So as you see, please let me know in the comments as people have already. We cut up a 5.3 aluminum block. And the reality is, and you guys get to hear it here on the live feed, that a lot of stuff that doesn't get put into the regular videos, you got to guys kind of get behind the scenes stuff. So that motor actually was not something that was a running motor that I took apart. It's actually something that was supplied by the guys at ATK, and I think it was something that was otherwise damaged or blemished or whatever. So they agreed, which is very awesome. A shout out to the guys at ATK High Performance again. Very nice of them to ship out this block with a crank and rod and piston assembly on it, so that we could. And they knew what we were going to do with it, so that we could chop it up basically. And Mark and Troy cut out a section of the block, and then we took the cylinder head over to AccuFab and used a bandsaw to cut it, and then I did a little bit trimming. And actually, in looking at it now and trying to get the light in there and stuff, I think what's going to happen is I think I'm going to trim out even more because I want to do more videos with it. I want to show what happens, and I can hook up a degree wheel, and we can hook up dial indicators on the top, so we can actually do some measurements and show you. I can show you, we can kind of show you both sides. If I show you the dial indicator, hey look, this has 100 thousandths clearance or 50,000 or 1,000, whatever the number is, we can take a look at that. But then also we can see it from underneath. Hey look, it's right there. And at this position, and we can show the degree wheel maybe, hey, look, at 10 degrees, it has this much clearance. At 20 degrees, it has a lot more clearance. At 0 degrees, at TDC, it has a lot more. And I can kind of show you the sweep of where that is with any given camshaft. I can also show you different camshafts, as I put in the video, sloppy 1, 2, 3 kind of thing, or any sort of stage 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. As we go bigger in camshaft, I can show you that, hey, look, this is what happens. We get less and less piston to valve clearance. I can show you what happens when we change LSA, because everyone's on this like tight LSA thing now. And so we can show you what happens with piston to valve, how it could become if you keep going down in LSA, depending on how much duration you're talking about, you can go down to no piston to valve clearance. And that and the idle quality and things are why you don't see a lot of 105 and 106 degree LSA cams, because they just don't idle well. they don't have good like low speed drivability, and also they don't have good piston to valve clearance. So even though they could make good power if you have valve reliefs and you have the ability to do that, if power is your only thing, that's a good deal. But as we've talked about many times, that's not always the only thing, and certainly not the only reason. A lot of times, it's not even a top 5 reasons that guys buy camshafts. So, but I can demonstrate all that, and like I said, we could see it on both sides. It's cool to look in there. It's easy for me to visualize if I see the piston going up, seeing it at top dead center, seeing it 10 before. Oh yeah, look what's going on with the exhaust. Seeing it 10 after. Hey, look what's going on with the intake. And then when I see it, then I can talk to you about it, because you can see it and I can explain it in the way that it's visually represented. So it's a little bit easier. So there's a lot of cool stuff that we can do. I can show you what happens when we advance the cam, when we retard the cam, what happens when we change different rocker ratios. There's lots of stuff that you can see that visually we can talk about when we're doing that, and then you will be able to use that mock-up motor, I think, a lot for lots of different tests. So it's kind of cool. So again, like I asked for in the video, please let me know some tests that you guys would like to see. What kind of comparisons would you like to see that we could visually, we can apply this visual representation of my chopped and channeled 5.3 liter aluminum block and cylinder head. The cylinder head we didn't care about, obviously. It gets no love. It's an old 706 head that I think has cracks between the intake and the exhaust valve. Somebody had painted it at one point. I had to clean all that stuff off. It was essentially a throwaway head. I think I remember that head going to the machine shop and Derek telling me, you really shouldn't even use this thing. It has so many problems. Just go get another head from the wrecking yard. And so it serves its purpose. It's perfect. This is perfect as a throwaway thing to be able to use it as a mock-up. And you know, a lot of people think, oh yeah, he just killed the 5.3 block or chopped one up, and that's not the case. Again, it was something that was supplied to us, and it was already damaged, so it was not something that, you know, it would be hard for me even to take a perfectly good aluminum 5.3 block. Now an iron block, I don't think I'd have any qualms about that. In fact, when all of this started, I was going to do that, and then I thought, you know, it's going to be a lot easier to cut the aluminum stuff, even though on the block we have to go through the sleeve, but still, it's still easier. And it was very easy to cut the cylinder head. Took very little time. You know, you just have to go easy on the bandsaw, and all that worked out good. So I like that process, and I like the fact now that I can use it for more things. Like I said, I'm going to try to widen that window up a little bit and see if we can see even better in there, and then I'll work on lighting more, and we can see more things, and we can test more things. So that'd be cool. The other thing that I did, and we did this yesterday. In fact, all day yesterday, I worked with Mark and John from AccuFab and Kenne Bell and the guys from Kenne and the company Kenne Bell. And what we did is they're reintroducing the 5-liter Ford Mustang kit. So it's a bolt-on supercharger kit, which actually the installation of the thing is no harder than putting on a upper intake manifold basically for a 5-liter. So if you change the upper intake manifold on it, you really can put this blower on. There's a couple little tricks with the AC. The interesting thing that I thought about, the thing that surprised me quite honestly, and we'll talk about this on the live feed, and I'll talk about this more after I post that video, which it's ready to go up now. I've already done all the editing. But the interesting thing was that we ran it the way that the kit is sold as an emissions legal kit. It was they went through certification way back, and so the kit is certified for a stock 5-liter or a Cobra 5-liter. The kit just bolts on obviously to both of those. Now they have different injectors, but the thing is fueled with an FMU. So the FMU, if you don't know what that is, it basically shuts the return line and raises the rail pressure. So the interesting thing for us is I was surprised actually how well it worked. It worked fairly well. I mean, it was a little fat at the beginning, which we kind of expected. It became less fat at the beginning as we went up in boost. So because it shut the rail off, it's giving basically as much as it can. And when we're adding airflow by adding boost, we're essentially leaning it out. And so all that worked out good. But I was surprised at how smooth that the air fuel curve was with the FMU. I don't remember them working quite that well, but since we're logging the air fuel curve, it worked very well. We tried different boost levels, we tried different throttle bodies, and we tried the Super Richie cold air, and so all that worked out good. But it was cool to go back to the beginning for me, because I still have my 5-liter Mustang, I still have my 88, and it was cool that all this stuff was going on, and that there's a renewed interest in this kind of thing, that they're making this new kit, and they've updated the kit, made visual changes to it and stuff, so it looks really cool. And it was, like I said, very easy to bolt on, and it does add power. And what I'm going to do is I'm finished with the video now, but I'm probably going to do another one after I get home, so I can take a look at the data and we can go into it more thoroughly, because I have data log the changes in fuel pressure during the runs. We have changes in boost. We have changes in air temperature. We have a lot of things that I didn't really talk about in the first video. So we'll get more in depth in it, and maybe guys, if you have, throw out some comments and see. This particular motor was a 93 Cobra motor. So it had the GT40 style or Cobra intake manifold. This one actually had an Explorer intake manifold, but as we saw from the test, they're similar or the same power. It had a 65 millimeter throttle body, which is what they came with. It had the larger mass air meter and 24-pound injectors. It had the Cobra rockers on it. This one had shorty headers, equal length shorty headers, which we yelled and screamed about the whole time because they're just awful. There's no reason to have them. They do nothing over regular shorty headers on a 5-liter. All they do is potentially burn plug wires and make access to the plugs even worse. So there's no reason to have them. In fact, Mark's going to change them out for another. I think that those are probably emissions legal, but another set of equal length, unequal length shorties, I guess is what you call them. But the car it was from another state, but it came with cats and all that stuff. so that we could test it and just run it basically in stock trim, and it did well NA and ran good, and then we put the blower on it and stuff. And again, there'll be more behind the scenes stuff because there's more things that happen while we're doing this testing, and things did happen, and so I'll be able to talk about that stuff, and there are issues more with the motor that we had to cure. No problems at all with the Kenne Bell. Just kind of bolted on and did what it's supposed to do. Hey, I'm spinning, I'm supplying boost, and like I said, with just an FMU, it was fairly impressive. And then we made the other changes, so it's kind of cool. So let me know. I'll kind of scroll back here and see what you guys are talking about, and see what the comments are. Hopefully I can get to them. Yeah, we're back. You like the cutaway. I've been wanting to do this now for 2 or 3 years, and it finally just thanks to the help of the guys from ATK, they just said, yeah, we'll send one out. That's very, very cool. We like that. We like that idea. I've done testing with a number of their motors, their crate motors. Usually they came for editors and stuff, not for me. But I'm always the one that ends up doing all the dyno testing because I'm the dyno guy. So I did all the testing with them, and all of them have worked. All of them work great. So I have nothing but positive things to say in my dyno testing about that stuff. And then obviously that makes no difference for what we're trying to do on a mock-up motor, because the mock-up motor worked. But we did have to do quite a few things to it. We had to make solid lifters out of it, and adjustable push rods and things like that, and section out the head gasket. But all that was cool. Nice cutaway. Bring a 20-liter V12. Nice. I'm tearing apart my 350 in my boat. Turns out I have 415 heads and have 202-1.5 valves. A 202-150? That seems like an odd combination. Can I run a turbo cam on my NA build? Yes, and vice versa. Richard laughs at the concept of turbo cams and blower cams and rec port cams and carburetor cams and all the things. There's just cams. Yes, you can. 1,000 horsepower Ford 460 D90 2-bolt block. Do I need to upgrade to a 4-bolt? Yeah, I think a 4-bolt's going to be an aftermarket block, because did the factory even make any factory 4-bolt 460 blocks? I think you're talking about an aftermarket block. And at that power level, the 460 guys tend to be worried about the longevity of at that power level, the strength of the block. Due to the great difference in intake and exhaust track pressure on supercharged engines, a blower-specific cam helps them, as you can see in the Hellcat. I don't agree with that. A factory cam is not a blower cam. And the reason that the factory cam is a factory cam has almost nothing to do with it being a supercharged application. It has everything to do with it solving the other problems that they're trying to solve. It has to be longevity. It has to have no warranty issues. It has to have a certain idle. It has to get this kind of fuel mileage. It's going to produce the power curve that they want based on what the camshaft does. But they didn't choose that camshaft, the design, because it has a blower on it. I use my cam profile curve and a host of measurements to accurately calculate my piston to valve within 0.5 millimeter on measurement. As expected, needed 3 millimeter valves cut in the intake. Richard, what happened to the 375 horse 396? The heads are back, so it's ready to go back together. So that's why you're keeping the 5-liter. No, I'm probably not going to put a, I don't think I'm going to put a Kenne Bell on it. I think I would put a Vortec on it if I put a supercharger on it. That's the way it originally came. But whatever I do, I want it to be, initially I want it to be emissions legal. What does the Hellcat cam do differently? Nothing. It just spins around, opens and closes valves, and then boost goes in. What are we talking about? We're talking about two things. One is the cutaway that I did on piston to valve clearance, and then the other one is Kenne Bell supercharged 5-liter. They reintroduced the original 5-liter kit. So my Fox is going back together too. Yeah, I have to get the Z running and the Fox running this year. So I'm running out of time. Richard, can you give us, at one point, can you give us a review on the Aces? What's an Aces Jackpot LS system? I don't know what that is. So I wouldn't be able to give you an evaluation if I don't know what it is. 202 and 15 valves on head that came with 172 valves. It has a small 58 or 50. Okay. So somebody cut it for a bigger intake valve anyway, right? Only 429 Super Cobra Jet came from the factory with 4-bolt mains. Yeah, and that's a 429 block, right? That's not a 460. With the cutaway block, maybe we can see why the piston flip didn't work. Maybe. What is your minimum cold piston to valve clearance? I've run as tight as 3. But the thing that's nice about checking a cold motor the way that we check it in this manner with a checker spring and stuff is that your piston to valve is only going to increase dynamically. You're going to get deflection and everything, and your deflection could be 15 or 20 thousandths. It could be quite a bit depending on different things. There is a factory 4-bolt 460, but not from this late model head. Anyone converted a D9TE block to a 4-bolt here? Is that a late model EFI block? If that's the case, I wouldn't use that on a 1,000 horsepower build. How many test engines would you say that you have? Do you have at least? Oh, yeah, it's more than a dozen right now. Everyone would be a minimum hot side size for a 350 LT1 for a daily driver. I'm debating on getting another turbo. Well, first of all, you have to ask yourself what kind of power you want. What is your power requirement? Is it a 400 horsepower turbo or a 5 or 6 or 7? I think the only 4-bolt 385 series blocks were the Boss 429 and the Super Cobra Jet. That's what I thought. I didn't think they made any factory 460 blocks, but I don't know everything about 460s. But the engine can still get my 28-foot boat up on plane. No, KR 3,000ths piston to valve. Like, meaning almost no measurable piston to valve. But it had more, obviously, dynamically. So it had enough. We ran the motor and it didn't hit. I know that the manufacturers will tell you 100. We run them at 35 static measurement all the time. And how I feel about the measurement number is also going to be a function of the type of valve train that I'm running. Do I have lots of spring pressure? We're probably not going to get valve control issues. 600-ish, I don't want a laggy or a sluggish. Then you should put a GT45 on it, as always. That's right in that range, especially for a 350. A 350 and a GT45 is going to be pretty responsive. And it's very affordable. And yes, you could probably pick a better hot side. I was talking to Robert at Force Performance, and we were talking about some different stuff that he has coming out. In fact, he has a new turbine wheel that will help solve a problem that your typical 78, 75 turbo might have, where especially on a bigger motor, let's say a 6-liter LS or even these typical kind of V8 application, where you might get to the flow rate of the maximum flow rate of the hot side before you get to the cold side, and so this other turbine wheel will work for higher pressure ratios, applications like that. So it's kind of cool. Turbo is good power and cheap power. Let's see what we got going on down here. No, we don't want that. We don't want that. Let's see what this is. Okay, we're gonna go to live chat now. I'm just learning all the fancy stuff. Not just half of one, not even a full one. Yeah, I don't give piston to valve in millimeters. If you, I know that that's facetious, but I know, like if you take a look at the difference between in the GM stuff, if you take a look at the LS stuff where they run a factory blower like the LS9, the LSAs, and then you take a look at the camshafts that they run in their other motors, an LS2, LS3, LS6, those kinds of things. If they ran an LS2 or 3 in there, it would still work. In fact, it would make more power. It might not make more power on the top because the LS7 and LS9 camshafts make the most peak power of all of the factory cams. But the other ones would make more power in the middle. I think that they're not as concerned about making more power in the middle. And I think that also it probably helps with detonation control. Detonation is not a good thing. I was surprised on this 5-liter testing that it was running full factory timing. It was we set the timing at 10 degrees, which is what a factory 5-liter has. And just an FMU seemed like a lot. Seemed like a lot of wishful thinking. And yet, when on the first poll, and we didn't realize this until later, but this 93 Cobra motor had a smaller crank pulley because the Cobras have smaller crank pulleys than the regular 5-liters did. So we installed the kit with the pulley that's designed to provide like 5-6 pounds, and it didn't because it had such a smaller crank pulley. It was only like 3 or so, and then fell off down to 2.5, and so naturally it didn't make big power gains. We were all disappointed, but it turns out, hey, you're just not spinning the blower fast enough. But the other thing that happened is when we ran it with that blower speed, and the return line shut with the FMU, it was rich. It was down below 10-1, so that's not good. That's pretty lean. I mean, that's pretty rich. But once we added more airflow by spinning the blower faster, then everything got happy again. Yes, DFI. If the block is an original EFI block, that block, I'm told, is not as strong as the earlier blocks are. So I wouldn't use that, and I don't think the guys that are building high horsepower stuff are using it, even if you convert it to 4-bolt main, because the 4-bolt main is only solving potentially one of the problems. But is the main webbing that you're bolting the 4-bolt caps to, is that strong? How are the cylinders? What's the thickness there of the sleeves? What's the whole main webbing area? What's the structure there? What frequency do these blocks like to run in and not run in? There's an awful lot that goes on it rather than just the number of bolts that you have. Anybody using a Summit wastegate? I'm sure that they sourced that from somebody else, right? About a 60 millimeter, but my flange was different, so got a cheap China one and to get it up and running. Without measuring on the engine, it must be possible to calculate the piston to valve clearance with a specific formula, right? The only way that could be possible is if you had every measurement on the engine. Every other measurement besides the actual piston to valve clearance. Because you'd have to know where the piston is, how far down it is in the hole, what your compressed head gasket thickness is, what the actual valve drop is, not just an estimated valve drop of a type of cylinder head, but what if your head has been milled? I mean, what if it's been machined a little bit, 2 or 3 thousandths? You have to know how is your head set up? What is the tip height? How is the valve cut? I mean, there's a lot of things that go into actual piston to valve clearance. When your cam was your cam ground perfectly? How is your cams installed in there? Is it slightly advanced or slightly retarded? Is it ground slightly advanced or slightly retarded? There's a lot of things. So if you had a formula that could give you that number, the amount of information and spot on accurate information that you'd have to have would be way more involved than just measuring it. Richard, did you test the ZZ502 cam on the Gen 6 engine? I think that's the cam that we ran. Check and see. I have a video up on that on the. I know I didn't run on a Gen 6 engine. I ran on the 8.1, and I didn't measure piston to valve. Run a 5.3 2005 Silverado. I should look for a plan on dealing with a 1972 Caprice, maybe boost in the future. Yeah, that's good. Even a little bit of boost on a 5.3 goes a long way. I like the T-shirt you're wearing. Yeah, I need to get on that and offer T-shirts. 5.3 for $800 with a transmission, but the harness looks shot. Yeah, I don't know what a full takeout price is because I never get that. I never get the transmission and I never get the harnesses or anything like that. And now, because of the pricing structure, at least with the LKQ stuff, I don't even get accessories or any of that stuff. I take out the intake manifold because we've got truck intake manifolds. I got all the truck intake manifolds I could possibly use. So I don't do that. So more, it's just a long block than anything else. Not every turbo is a camshaft turbo, though. Every turbo is a turbo. It would kind of be interesting, and this is what I was thinking while we were doing the install on the Kenne Bell 5-liter, is it now would be interesting to put a Vortec on there in their emissions legal trim, like with just the FMU from back in the day, and see what the difference is. I mean, we know that there's going to be a difference in the power curves, because one of them, the boost response is much more immediate. But it would be interesting to see at this low boost level how they compare, in the real world. Like the section cylinder head thing. I was really excited about it. I like pulling them off in the video. I've been waiting forever to do that. I found two 4.8s for $150. Nice. 4.8 and 5.3s are getting cheaper. That's good. I don't know why that would be the case, but maybe in Canada. Anything I should look for specifically in a junkyard motor to make sure it's worthwhile? Well, the first thing I look for is not the motor. The first thing I look for is the vehicle. If you see a vehicle in the wrecking yard, you want to see you want to see one that's crashed. Not that you want something bad to happen to people. But if it's crashed, that usually means that it was driving and it's not an engine or transmission problem. Usually it means the car was in a wreck. The insurance company totaled the car because it cost way too much to fix it, but it was running when it crashed. We assume and we hope that it was running well. And then once you get to the motor part of it, you should spin it over and make sure that it spins, that it's not locked up. Obviously, I've gone through that before. I bought a motor that I didn't do that on, and it had a broken crank. That one was a big block Chevy. So it turns out that it was still a reasonable deal because we still got lots of other things off of it. Because the block, was still good. We could use that for a stroker buildup or whatever. But make sure it spins. You can even, if you have a buddy with you, you can spin it over with a ratchet. You could even bring a battery and crank it over and do a compression test if you want to get real elaborate with it. Can Richard just build the exact motor combination I want so he can do all the research for me? You'd be surprised at how often I get that question. Oh, the holiday prices are good. Yeah, the when they have the 40 and 50% off sales, those are good. Those are when everybody goes, and before that, the week or two before that, they go and take stuff out, or take stuff most of the way out, and the stuff that they do take out, they hide somewhere else. They take the motor out and go hide it over in the import section or whatever. You see a lot of that stuff. Check for windows in the side of the block. Yeah, check for big holes in the pan, which we've found before. Every holiday I pick and pull. Yeah, that's good. I like the sale. The only problem with the sale weekends is it's also like the line to check out and stuff is usually really, really long. But you saved a bunch of money, so it's okay. I'd like to do a compression test. Yeah, you can either borrow a battery that they have there and bring jumper cables, and we use a little push button remote starter. We even brought one in and put oil in it and wanted to see that it had oil pressure. And in our case, oil was squirting out the top because it was that 4200 Atlas motor. But the motor ended up running good. It just had a leaky valve cover that was leaking into where the spark plug was. You're not sure how to do a compression test. You just get a compression gauge and screw it into the spark plug. But and then, like I said, you have to bring a battery so that you can crank it over. People always walk by and look at you like, what is that guy doing? Why is he spinning that motor over? If it's a carbureted one, you can actually make it run. Might be able to do that to a fuel injected one too. Yeah, the sale weekends, the parking lots, just you got to get there really, really early. They're usually on the sale weekends. There's a big line waiting to get in, and then it's just chaos in there to get because they usually only have like 4 or 5 or whatever of the engine hoist and stuff. So you gotta kind of go snag that right away. But they don't like you doing that because they want you to use it and then be done with it and then give it back to somebody else. What fuel do you use when you dyno engines? 91 is the pump gas that we normally use, and then E85 we have at a local gas station also. Although I ran the last Pontiac that I ran, the carburetor blow-through thing, I just ran it on 91 with the turbo on it, but we only ran like 6 pounds. And on this supercharged 5-liter, we only ran on 91. Yeah, blue collar, if he's able to recycle stuff. A lot of guys will do that. They'll buy vans and stuff that have the LS motors in them and then sell the other parts of it after they take the motor out. And that's good. Try to find a vehicle that's hitting the rear or the side. Yeah. On the front, if you don't want it to be damaging the motor or cracking a block or something. Have you ever tested the Texas Speed Mad Max camshaft? No, I haven't. If you tell me the specs, though, there's a really good chance that I've tested something like that, and I can kind of tell you what it will do. Because contrary to popular opinion, there's a lot of sameness in camshafts. Except for blower and turbo cams. We know that those are specific. But if somebody has a 224 cam, a 224 232 cam, another guy has a 224 232 cam, and they're around 600 lift and 100 and teens lobe separation angle, they're going to do very similar things. You want to put a van body onto your Class C RV? Should I try and do an oil pump upgrades and rocker trunnion pins delete? Now, you shouldn't worry about any of that. You should. We just run the motors out of the wrecking yard the way that they come. You don't need to upgrade your oil pump. The factory pump's really good. You can put a new stock one in there if you want to do that. Richard did a really good cam matrix video, basically drew a box around the cams within a range and what to expect. Yeah, you can see I've tested cams all the way from stock stuff, which is the lowest one. I don't think I've tested anything. I don't think anybody's ever made me a camshaft that has less than stock specs. Like instead of 191 like the LM7 cam, it's 180 or 160 or 150. And then all the way up usually to the biggest thing that will fit. And some bigger things that will fit only with valve notches. So you're going down from a LSD, you're going down from a 400 down to a 305. Motorhomes are the lowest RPM spec. You mean from the factory? I don't know. I don't know that they would be smaller than the truck cams, than factory ones. Most of those motorhomes should have an RV cam in it, right? And an RV cam is going to be bigger than the stock. Gonna follow your recipe for a ProCharge 6-liter. I have 317 heads and 862s. My thought is using the 317s because of better breathing. I know I could get better heads, but those are my choices. That's fine. You won't gain anything from the breathing from the 317 head that you're not going to lose from the compression. You're going to lose way more than you gain, but those heads will work with the ProCharger. You'll just be starting out at less power, and then the boost that you had will just be less, but your tuning window will be a lot better. Have you tested Crowder cams? I've run lots of Crowder cams on different kinds of motors, but I don't remember. I honestly don't remember running a Crowder LS cam though. Mad Max is a 228, 232, 550, 110. That's probably going to be a little bit better than a sloppy stage 2. Maybe. It has less lift, but it has a slightly tighter LSA, so it's going to be right in the range of a sloppy stage 2. So have you tried milet on oil pans? I've tried lots and lots of milet on oil pans on lots of different engine combinations. I don't know what engine you're talking about. You might do a Mother Jugs and speed replica. That's pretty cool. It's been a long time since I watched that movie. Or TV. Was it a TV show? Ford was taken out by a guy who was supposed to get it running, but actually swapped a 305 into it. .53 is my answer. A 5.3 will be better than certainly better than a 305, and it will be better, like in stock trim. A 5.3 would be 100 horsepower better than a 305. All right, KR, we'll see you, man. Love the old Chevy book on cams. Everything above the line you can run with cast iron exhaust and mufflers. Everything below is open to headers. I'm not familiar with that because I don't know of any camshaft that you can't run with both of those. One of them just makes more power than the other. Richard, did you plan on testing the small block Chevy cam that changes the firing order? I don't. I can't remember now what the firing order is for the LS. I've tested 4.7 swap cams that don't do anything to power. They didn't change the firing order for power, if that's what you're looking at. Looking at getting a milet on oil pan for my 5.3. If a stock aluminum pan will fit, I would just get that because it's already there, and all of the factory pans are pretty decent as long as you're not road racing it. YouTube channel 244, 250, 503, 518, 105. That sounds like a short track cam to me. Is it a hydraulic flat tappet or a hydraulic or a solid flat tappet? It sounds like a short track cam to me. What about a 5.3 versus original 400? I don't know what configuration your 400 was in. Because you can have 400s that make 200 horsepower that were stock, that were low compression. They had pretty good torque. But they had such small cams in them, and they had 2-barrel intake manifolds and stuff that they didn't make very much power. I'd swap both cylinders, okay? I don't think you're going to see a change. If you keep all of the valve events the same and just swap the firing order, I don't think you see a change in power. The idea is to help with scavenging. Like I said, we didn't see changes on the dyno. But if, we could test it and see. I've never tested a small block Chevy where we change 2 sets of cylinders. Thought the 4.7 swap was to take some stress out of the crank. That's why they changed the firing order in the LS. It's not. It wasn't for power. It was for NVH and for longevity. Carr says for an oval track. Yeah, that's what I mean by short track. It's a dirt track cam. Have you sleeved a 5.3 out to a 7 liter? No. We sleeved a 5.7 and I made it a 468. So I sleeved an aluminum LS6 block, and we went to a 4185 and a 4250 or something like that, because the sleeves were longer and also we could put more bore in it. But yeah, a properly sleeved block you can make a lot of power with, and the 7 liter, a 427 would be no problem at all. .53 would be more powerful. Yes, it will make more power. It's probably going to make less immediate low speed torque than a 400-inch motor. Run a coil on ignition plug. Yeah, that's a coil on plug thing is going to gain you nothing on a mild combination versus a distributor. Track Saturday night, hopefully for more testing. I'll see the results of lower inlet air temps and have a few other things to try. Cool. We did some of that testing on the blower deal too. We made the super itchy cold air on it, and it helps make power. Not surprising. Cold air, the motor always likes cold air better than it likes hot air. It's a reasonable power goal for a 305 tune port using the stock tune port. So I don't know how you think you're going to get power if you're keeping the stock tune port set up and keeping the stock tune port heads. What are you changing? Just the cam and headers? You're not going to get a lot of power. I have 305 tune port stuff up, so you can kind of get an idea of what we did. We didn't. A 305 needs more cylinder head, but the factory tune port is definitely going to hold you back in terms of power. It's just not going to want to make power at any kind of reasonable RPM. Any luck from Melling providing their new truck cam versus a BTR cam shootout? I haven't talked to them about that. What was I talking to them about? I think one of the muscle car cams or something, I think, is the last thing that we talked about. No, the Mellings guys reached out about LS cams. I don't know. I have to ask them. Having already run all of those 4 other cams, that if the specs are similar, which if you come out with a cam after somebody else came out with a cam that's been selling really well and you made yours like that, it's probably going to be like that. Last track out, I started my last run at 151 degrees, only dropped to 120 by the end of the run. How are you dropping the inlet air temp? Is the 151 temp an idle temp, and the 120 is a wide open throttle number? Like, is this ice water or something? How are you doing that? Give me some deets. Come on. You got it. I know, I gotta get back to work. I think I'm gonna go do in the morning, might go to at the tree 151. So it's 151 at idle. That's a high starting temperature. Install the 3200 stall, and now my Pro LS Summit cam. My truck is taking a while to build up from first gear. Really dogged out from the stock stall. Any recommendations in tuning for the trans? I'm not a tuner, but if you went from a stock stall speed to a 3200, your car should be a lot quicker. It should be a lot more responsive. Unless the tune is not right. But I don't know what they're going to do to it because I don't tune any of the factory stuff. So if anybody has any recommendations for them, let them know. It's been super hot in Florida. I know I was going to come out there. I don't think I'm going to in August. We had our trip planned. Chad and I were going to go, and then my buddy Jimmy was going to try to go. But I honestly don't think, given what I've done here in catching snakes, that going the hottest month of the year is probably helps us with our success ratio. It runs worse with the new stall. Yeah, something's going on. If you have a higher stall speed, it should run better. What block would you use to mimic the original displacement of a 6.6 liter? That's a 400. You would do a 6 liter block and then do a 4-inch crank. That would give you a 408. Or if it's not bored, it would give you a 402. The Dow Phoenix 119. So I don't like when people give me temperature data and heat index or wet bulb or anything. Just tell me what the temperature is. Ambient that day was in the low 90s. Okay, but in the staging lanes, idling, it got extra hot. And this is a positive displacement blower deal that has a bypass valve on it, right? We saw that on the Kenne Bell when we were running it too, and it has a bypass valve on it, but still the starting temperatures were 125, you know, when the thing is idling there before it's getting ready to go, or before it's ready to make a run. It's an NA LQ4? Where are you taking your temperature? Why would your air temperature be 150? Do you have an open element filter or something in there? Visiting Florida in August or September is probably a bad idea because it's going to be hot. I don't care about the heat, but the snakes don't like it. That they won't be out. They'll only be out at night, which is okay. But I don't want it to be 115 during the day and 90 because then they're not going to be out at night either. They're going to be underground or they're going to be in the water. 103 or 4 in Houston. Yeah, it's hot. All the whole lower part of the United States is hot. So my HP Tuner's data log recorded. I have a Banks cold air intake. It just seems like a lot. Saw your video on the M122 blower and adapter, but have you put it on a high-rise intake? Well, that adapter won't allow you to do that. He has one that will work on a high ram, and that's just going to do what a high ram versus a really short runner intake manifold does. If we extend the runner length like on a high ram, the high ram is going to make more power than that short runner manifold would, and then under boost it's going to make it's going to be even better, but you won't fit under a hood or anything. What are you paying for junkyard LS engines, and does the size in Gen 3 or 4 dramatically affect the price? At our wrecking yards, the size of the motor and the generation of the motor are not affected. It's all engines basically are the same price. Yeah, for a 400-inch motor in an LS is not hard to do. And the thing that I know that you're wanting to equal the displacement, but what you don't realize is that if you had a small block 400, it had junk heads on it. Even if it had the very best small block Chevy heads, they weren't very good, especially not from the 70s. We've run some small blocks that made. We ran a 2-barrel 350 with a smog head on it, an 882 head, a stock camshaft, a stock truck camshaft, so like 180 at 50, and a 2-barrel intake and stock exhaust manifolds, and it made 229. So it's not very stellar like that. 400 would have more torque, but not a whole bunch more power. I don't know, 240, 250 maybe, let's say. If it was a 2-barrel, it's not going to make very much power. So, and a stock 5.3 is 350 horsepower. I'd like to see you do a cheap version of fuel injectors. I've done decapped injectors. I've run them a few times. I don't recommend them. The problem is that you have to cut so many of them, and you have to then be able to test them, which I can do because the guys at West Tech have an ASNU injector machine, so I can flow them and balance them and make sure that they're all okay. But you have to go through a whole bunch of them before you get. If you were trying to do 8 of them, you'd have to go through a bunch before you get 8 that flow the same. And so, just taking your 8 and cutting them, you're going to have 3 of them that are way off, either way too much or way too little. But if you get some that are all the same, which I've done before, we use them in a Honda. We use them. What do we use those? Actually, use a couple of those in 4-cylinder applications. I think the guy from Powertrain cut some 36s for me that went to 70 something, I think. Blue collar, is it? Where are you taking your measurement? Where is that inlet air temp at? Is it in an intake manifold? Is it in the mass air meter? Where is it at? And and it has a cold air source? It should be ambient. Especially at wide open throttle, it should definitely be ambient. It's in the MAF 2001 Silverado. $1,500 for a 5.3 LC9. On my data logs. Be nice to get another perspective on that. Like I have a digital Type K thing that we run, and I just run and tape the digital readout to my windshield, and then we drive around like that. LC9 is a good starting engine. You know, what's not to like about an aluminum 5.3? Like the F body inlet air temp and stick it somewhere on the inlet track. JM, I don't know you mean what. I don't know what you mean by best chambers. Are you talking about the smallest one? Or talking about the shiniest one? What is your thing? What's your real question here? And is it an inline Ford? Is it a what is it? Is it an inline 6-cylinder? Ever since we cut that LS head, now I want to put an LS head on a 300 Ford. I was even talking to Mahovitz about it, because the way that I would do it is we would cut 2 heads, obviously, and then we'd cut them so they're both a little bit long, and then mill them both down on the mill so that they were the right distance apart, and then weld them together, and then obviously remachine them. Reptile guys, you got a 280ZX with a sloppy stage 2 and an LQ4. That should be fun. What does it have, an R200 rear end in it? Two more minutes. I gotta get going, yo. Got work to do. Yeah, Q4. Q4, we know what you mean. That's most of it. You said B2 is good and factory 440 bad. I don't remember making comments about Mopar heads because I've only ever run one big block Mopar that I can remember, and that was a 440. And if I made a comment about the 440, my comment was that I think that the piston was really far down in the hole. Would a stock 300 cam work? I don't know. I haven't done any of the checking to see where the lifters are, where the camshaft is, how the push rods come up. None of that stuff. I don't know how all of that stuff lines up. I don't know if they had to put sleeves in the pushrod holes, or I don't know any of that. I just know it'd be cool to have a 300 that had an LS head that flowed, 350 or 360. That would be pretty good. Be a lot better than whatever the factory head was. Especially if you could put some kind of camshaft in it. Yeah, a few guys have done it. I don't know. And I think guys have done the Ford heads on them too, like Boss heads or Cleveland heads, because same kind of thing. It's the bore spacing is close enough that it works, and obviously even it's a Ford thing, so a Boss head would or a Cleveland head would be kind of cool, but it's gonna flow a lot more than that inline 6-cylinder head does. When you weld LS heads, you want to plate the ends inside the cut so when you weld the heads together, there will be less chance of internal leaking. Yeah, we were thinking about that. We were thinking about and then having passages in there, but it was all just talk. I'd have to look and see how the water passages go, because if you welded everything externally, I don't know how the water could go anywhere except for into other water areas. But we could also run plates on them, and then run external water, either feeds or returns on them as necessary. People underrate combustion chamber design. No, combustion chamber design is very important. That's why the people that think that 317 heads are as good as 243 heads, well, it flows the same. If they do, that's good. But if I mill a 317 heads, then they'll be as good as a 243 head. No, they won't. It's completely different chamber design. It's not just bigger. It's worse. It's worser. Okay. I gotta get back to work. On that note, it is time to go. Thank you guys all as always for showing up. I'll be posting the I'll be posting the 5-liter Ford blower stuff, which is kind of cool. And then hopefully I'll be able to get over tomorrow to the wrecking yard and take a walk around. I always like to do that. Just, you know, just window shop. I don't need any more motors. I'm not buying any more motors, I promise. But I'll see you guys all tomorrow.